Hey, welcome back to another episode of the Mindshare podcast. This show is sponsored by Kit's Keep in Touch Systems, a 2-time international award-winning marketing suite for sales professionals. Gray Media, Ontario's premier social media management, marketing, and content creation company. And REM Real Estate Magazine, Canada's premier monthly magazine for real estate professionals. Be sure to check out our sponsors and what they have to offer on our site, mindshare101.com. A big thank you to you to start off today. We've been seeing a big push from our listeners to leave a review about the show, and it's really awesome to see such positive feedback. You are what fuels me to keep this going, and your reviews mean the world to me. If you haven't yet, could you please take a moment to rate and leave a review of the show at ratethispodcast.com/mindshare101. Your name will be entered into a draw to win free Mindshare 101 swag. Speaking of reviews, our one-to-one coaching is making such an impact for so many people. Jay says, "Thank you for everything you have done for me in 2022. No other coaching company puts in the care that you do." Daniel says, his biggest learning of 2022 was to schedule and prioritize. And Mir says his biggest learning is discipline, systematization, and consistency. Life is complicated. It's busy, and it never stops. That's why our one-to-one coaching is the answer you're looking for. We help you manage all of it. We are right here by your side to help you get to where you want to go, to help you get it all done, to help you feel and be in even more control. Learn more about our one-to-one coaching by visiting my site, mindshare101.com, and clicking on Coaching. Today's episode is number 215. After serving with the Canadian Armed Forces, he discovered his passion and pursued his dream in real estate. For the past 8 years, he has assisted his clients buy, sell, and invest in real estate. His knowledge, education, and personal experience in buying, selling, and managing property, along with his attention to detail, make him an excellent choice for both residential and commercial properties. He supports several local businesses and believes in giving back by volunteering in the community and giving to charity, including the Children Miracle Network and Homes for Heroes. Joining me on this episode of the Mindshare podcast is Kingston Realtor, Chris Jackson. Chris, welcome to the Mindshare podcast.
Thank you. That intro is way different when it's you that they're talking about.
Why have you taken time to read that one out loud to yourself before? No, I'm kidding.
No, but when you say it, it's totally different.
Well, listen, man, you know what? Look, I get the opportunity to know you on the next level, and I fully understand. When I read that, though, it's interesting because knowing you and understanding kind of how you operate and what you do out there and really the level of care that you truly take with your clients, to me, all of that is it's right there. It defines definitely who you are. I mean, and personally, I think there's a lot more that could be added there. But we're going to get into that now because I think there's some stuff here that when we titled, today's podcast topic as a military mind in real estate. I don't know that everybody that sort of read that went, I'm sure most people were kind of going, what? What do you mean a military mind? And well, we know you've got a military mind, right? So let me ask you that, right? Because right off the top, being in the armed forces, and I've asked you so many questions about that over our time together. I think it's super cool. I mean, but how long were you in the military for? And did you ever get to be like Top Gun, flying crazy missions of blowing enemies out of the sky? Or
No.
Seriously, what did you do there?
No. So yeah, I was in the military for 18 years. I was a communications tech. So we were in charge basically from everything from a computer at your desk, your phone at your desk. My specialty was deployed satellites and radios. So that's basically what I was in charge of. Yeah.
Deploying satellites and radios, is that like the first thing I'm getting to is putting satellites in space?
No, just ground satellites and all the radios that they use.
God, so the communication was open.
Yeah.
Gotcha.
So that's basically what I did.
And in that, I mean, when we take that and we say, okay, all about communication, the importance of communication. right? Like what happens if that stuff wasn't working? What kind of impact did that have or maybe not have?
With communication, like it's the utmost importance no matter what you're doing, whether it's a military mission, whether, we're operating the air, ground, air radios so the fighters can talk to the ground crew so they can land, or whether you're following up with a client, or a new possible client, 5 to 8 times. Like that communication is key. And without that, nothing operates. Business,
I like that segue.
Missions, whatever it is.
Yeah, I like that segue there. And I mean, that's really like, it's when you said communications, that's really where my mind's going, right? Like it's funny because I'll even take that beyond military or business. But I know last night I was at hockey practice and, we're sitting in third place right now. So the team's having a great season.
Right.
We certainly want to hit up first and we definitely don't want to drop down. Right. So one thing that we're doing now is we're getting prepped for playoffs, and playoffs will start in about 3 to 4 weeks from now. And one of the big messages to the team is, if you want to, how can you control that puck better? How can you control, being in the offensive zone better? And I mean, everybody comes up with, we're going to work harder. We're going to do this, and the answer I'm looking for is communication.
Yeah. For
and
sure.
How are you supposed to know where your teammate is if you don't communicate? How are you supposed to know to pass that puck if you don't communicate? Much the same in the military. Like if that communication is not working, how do the people in the sky know what's going on the ground? And then bring that right into business. If we're not communicating with our clients and even our prospective clients right now, especially in a market like right now, how are they ever supposed to decipher what's actually going on?
Yeah.
Right. Now tell me this, when you were in the armed forces, what did you learn about life while you were there? Like what did it really bring out in you when it comes to like actual character traits? And you had brought one of those up to me on an earlier call, right? But on the overall, like when we look at the parallels between being in the armed forces for 18 years and all of a sudden saying, okay, I'm leaving that world. I'm going to get into basically the professional world and start working with people and sales and everything else. Two different worlds, but there's obviously got to be a whole bunch of character traits that sort of were instilled in you to make you better in this world.
Yeah, for sure. And the worlds are completely different. People tell me I was, crazy to leave the forces and the government job to go on the straight commissions. But the big thing with the forces, it teaches you, like we call them standard operating procedures in the forces. The real estate side, system. Same thing, right? So we have, in both worlds, we have just checklists that we go by, and you follow those checklists. So it's the same as when I moved over, and especially once I got into coaching, now it's the systems. Let's put the systems in place. That's what we have to do daily to win the week. What do we have to do weekly to win the month, and so on. And doing all that stuff, it almost second nature coming from the forces, because it's just the material is different. Right? It's the same procedure, same thing. You're just following steps, basically doing what you're told, right? Whether I develop them or I work with a coach and develop them, I'm still just following a guideline and putting that guideline into the schedule so you can get everything done. So it's those two things like went hand in hand, as drastically different as they are from careers.
So like, as you look at that, right? Like when we say like a standard operating procedure, right? And like having something like that for your day, you've been able to see the parallel of doing that in the forces as well as doing that in business. And as long as you've got kind of that step by step to what needs to be done, and you follow that, 1 + 1 should equal 2.
It should, for sure.
Right now. Okay. So talk to me about the hard work then, right? Like, is it what the hard? Well, here's the thing. Like, here's where I'm going with this, right? Like, is it what it appears to be? Like when we talk about it here, and I'm going to go armed forces for a moment, okay? Because again, I think that when we talk about that, and I know my mind because I have not been in the armed forces, okay? And I mean, I think that there's some very super cool stuff about the idea around all of that. I've grown up loving sort of that whole military, army, whatever. Top Gun is my favorite movie, and I'd love to, fly that jet, but whatever. I digress. Looking at hard work, like, I mean, when you're there, is it like they literally like wake you up at any hour of the night, make you like run and do push-ups and all sorts of stuff in the pouring rain and like try to toughen you up? Like what kind of pressure do they put on you to become a stronger, tougher version of you. And again, how does that translate into the everyday life when it comes to challenges? It comes to frustrations, when things don't go the way you want them to, because we all experience that.
Yeah. So when you start through your training with the forces, yeah, they put you through the test. They're doing all that stuff. Maybe not quite as bad as you see on TV, but you're still going through the paces. All your training works you through that. They bring you up to a point where you think you're stressed out, pull back, and then move forward again. So you can handle more and more. So the hard work goes there. Day to day, it's the same thing. Like when we're the troubleshooting equipment, things aren't going to go as planned. Things aren't going to go as planned when you're in the field. It's about overcoming that and moving forward. And the hard work, I guess, it does roll over into the real estate as well, because there's long days there, right? Not your day isn't necessarily 9 to 5 at the forces. If something's wrong and, all the communication systems go down, you're there till they're back up, regardless of where you are. When I was
or how you
Winnipeg,
feel, right?
Yeah, it doesn't matter whether you're tired. It doesn't matter if there's a birthday at home. It doesn't matter about anything. If they can't talk, I can't go home for the day.
Right.
And my job is to get that radio working or the communications working, or sometimes if you're on the base side, it's just to get someone's computer working. And if it's an operational computer, it has to be working.
The whole thing about is, forgive me, you just worded this, and I'm gonna flub this now. But it was something like they push you to the brink and then almost pull back and then kind of deliver more, so you could realize how much more you have in you. Give me a little bit more to that. Like, I'm wondering, and parallel that for me in business. Like, how? Like, I would think to myself, okay, something's really driving me crazy. I'm really trying to figure this out. I get to a point where I think to myself, I cannot handle it anymore. And then, I said this to Joshua yesterday, my son, right? He's at home. He's doing his math homework. He's studying for a test that he had in school today. And I said, he's stressing, and I could see it. He was just sitting there, like, almost staring at the ceiling. I'm like, dude, walk away for a few minutes. Just walk away, come back, and get back at it. And that's something that I think that we in business probably don't do as much as we should do. But it's kind of the way to go about it. What about, like, again, from a military standpoint, like, what kind of training did they give you on that, or learnings did you have there of, you're like, push that max? How do you deal with that? Did you just walk away? Like,
so,
what's the reset? You know what I'm trying to say? Like, what's the reset to it?
For sure. So during my career in the forces, probably the busiest time I had when I was posted to Alberta. So we were communications tech. We were in charge of all of the equipment from basically all the ground armored vehicles. So we had 6.
Sounds so cool. Yeah.
Yeah. But we are in charge of 465 vehicles with communication suite.
Wow.
So I get there as, my first posting, and, we got to inspect all of these twice a year. So you go there and it's like, well, I can't handle that. No, I can do 1 or 2 a day, but then it's doing that 1 or 2 a day, and it leads up so that it's pressure. You get, pressure from our bosses to say, hey, look, we need these vehicles done. We have an exercise coming in. Then that just leads to, you take your break, you get your couple of days off the weekend, you're back at it. Well, now all of a sudden, within 6 months, we're plowing through those vehicles. So they kind of stress you out, and you have a little bit of a break, and you come back, and it's being able to handle that extra workload and then kind of bringing your standard up. And it's the same really with real estate as well, right? When you first get into real estate, I was thinking, 1 or 2 deals a year or whatever it ends up being, but it's about leveling off and then improving. So you get used to, let's say doing 50 vehicle inspections a month. That plateaus, you get used to that. Well, let's add another 5 in. And it's the same in the real estate world with leads, whether it's deals, whatever it is. You're bringing your business up to that level. You can't just plateau. You plateau at that gets okay. Now let's bring up the level again so we can add even more business. So the two are parallels there, because it's easy to say, okay, I'm used to it here, moving forward.
Right.
So the parallels are uncanny.
Yeah, because I would see the same thing. I mean, again, like if you say, okay, we got to inspect X, because I mean, I'll tell you right away, my mind started going, okay, how many calls? You could do more.
Yep.
How many leads? Okay, cool. We could do more. We think about social media. Okay. And again, and for everybody, right? You should have a few posts going up a week. You should have your stories on both your Insta and your Facebook
Yep.
just lit up every single day. Why not? It's not hard. But if you're at 0, getting to 1 is a challenge. When you're at 1, getting to 2 is a challenge, right? But as you start to again plateau and do it, now it starts to get easier. And I mean, I'll take the same thing and say, like, we go to the gym and we work out, right? And I track every weight that I lift, I track every rep that I do, I track everything, and I can see the incremental growth month over month of how the weight gets, let's say 5 pounds heavier. The reps, may stay the same, but the weights continue to get heavier and heavier and heavier. Yet they don't feel heavier and heavier and heavier because, again, we're starting to become more resilient, right? Yeah. So that resiliency, that's your consistency repetition. That's your, your toughening up. That's what's, going to take you to that next level. Because I mean, hey, you said what? You could do sort of 2 of those vehicles a day and then start to get to how many?
So it got to the point where, we were doing 10 or 20 a day.
See that?
At one point, right? So it's streamlining. It's a learning process. It's the same moving over in, like, that's a learning process. You get to, realize how to do this, how to be more efficient in your time. It's the same way when you're going over into the real estate world and making those phone calls, right? Again, the phone calls, so 2 or 3 a day, I should be making 5 to maybe 10 a day, but it's making use of that time, right? We're not in the forces. You're kind of in the field with all the vehicles. There's nowhere to go. Right? There's no social media to click onto. There's no, I'm going to go talk to everybody down the hall. So the biggest thing was just getting that in there and being able to say, okay, I've got to sit down and do this and time block it. So you're using your time efficiently. But once you get doing that, and then it's just pushing. Sometimes, you have it on your schedule to do 5 phone calls or 5 vehicles that day, but things went smooth and I can make another 2 or 3.
Right.
So the day where things don't go smooth, you're already caught up in your head of the game.
So as we talk about then the idea of being in the forces and sort of that parallel to like what it's like to actually be in the sales world and the differences but some of the similarities and some of the character traits that are brought to you, why the transition to real estate for you? 18 years in the forces. Was it just like, I'm just done with this? Was it a fear of like what could possibly happen? Or was it just, what was the idea behind that?
So I've always loved the process of moving, buying and selling and moving. Right from a kid, my dad always followed the real estate world. Yeah. So it was kind of something I always followed anyway. Left the forces was due to a back injury. Okay. So I was on my way out anyway. Kingston's where we wanted to stay. So it just kind of made sense to, now I have the opportunity. Never had the opportunity being posted around to kind of do real estate and, develop roots in that client base where we knew we weren't moving once we got here. So to me, it was an easy decision to say, okay, let's go get my license and let's make this thing happen. I have a couple of years that I was doing both. I had about 3.5, almost 4 years where I was in the forces and doing real estate. So yeah, it seemed like at the time like a no-brainer. Yeah. Yeah. And that's what it was. And that's a lot of where my scheduling and time blocking and everything came in. I was basically 7:30 to 4 on the base. I was actually teaching at the end of my career, all the trades that the kids needed coming through to go do what I did. Yeah. So I had more of a set schedule, which enabled me to work over my lunch hours, do evenings and weekends for showings and open houses, all that stuff. So yeah, it's a lot of time management to make that happen and still keeping life at home happy.
So when you got into real estate, then you started to make that transition. What was the biggest learning that you had, or even challenge when you first got in? Like what did you realize pretty quickly about the sales life and running your own business?
It's a lot tougher than the Facebook and the Instagrams make it out to be. Everyone thinks,
you mean everything you see on social media is not just true?
No. So it was a lot of getting used to. When I was in the forces, it was, I knew what to do every day. Right? It was set out. But now I'm kind of developing my own day, my own plans, and it is making the phone calls. Just because I get my realtor license doesn't mean that the phone starts ringing. Right? The only phone that's ringing is the one on the other end where I'm making the phone calls. So yeah, it wasn't as easy as even I didn't think it was going to be easy, but it was even harder than I thought it was going to be to build that business up and build that clientele up. Like, I lived at open houses. I was doing 2 to 4 a weekend. Like, that's how I built my database. But being open and being able to start those conversations and even do this is attributed to the forces.
Right. So there was a big reality check around, again, don't believe everything you see on social. And I want to take a moment on that too, because to that comment right there, I mean, first, I agree, and I'm sure everybody tuned in really does agree for sure. That said, it's interesting how there's a thought process that says, hey, I'm going to put myself out there. I'm going to make people think, look at me, look at me, look at me. And as long as people think that, then that's reality. Although we know it's not reality, right? Because you still have to look yourself in the mirror and do. And so much the same. When we are the onlookers looking at other people and seeing what they're achieving and seeing what they're doing, we've got to take it with a grain of salt, because are they really doing? Are they really achieving? Or are they just telling us on through social channels that's what they're doing? And there's a difference there.
Yeah, there is. And it was just like I said, it's a lot of work. Getting the systems in place, making those phone calls, doing all that stuff took more energy than I was expecting, and I was expecting it to be hard.
Right. And okay, so parallel between military and business when it comes to managing the days, saying that it became hard, right?
Yeah.
When we look at that, I mean, I'm going to say that I think the military would always be harder. Again, I'm picturing like I'm sleeping in a tent and it's 3:00 in the morning, pouring rain, and they wake me up and I got to go do push-ups and run and climb and, whatever. I don't know.
It's not. Yeah.
You're saying real estate's a tougher gig though.
It is. Oh, for sure. I think so. I think real estate is tougher for sure. And that depends what you do, right? For what I did in the forces, my day-to-day was not that bad.
Fair enough. Because there was a lot more technology and things of that nature.
Yeah. So, there's other trades I'm sure that, have a tougher time. But for me, it wasn't. For what I did in my career, I found real estate tougher when I started, for sure. And it's just building those habits, and now you're your own boss, right? It's up to me to go out and make those phone calls. I'm not being told by my superiors to go do this, go do that.
Right.
I have to follow the checklist. I have to develop the checklist. I still have to get out and make the phone calls, dial in the numbers, do all that. So that's why it's a self-discipline, which also you learn from the forces as well, is that discipline of, you need to do something. So instead of my boss telling me what to do, now it's the guy in the mirror telling me what to do.
Mm-hmm.
But still following those same checklists and systems.
Okay, so from a structure perspective then, when we look at non-negotiables in the day, because you keep coming back to phone calls, which, I love that. And I think that, the same way I say we've lost the art of wishing people happy birthday, I do also believe that we've lost the art of making the phone call. I hear from a lot of different people in the sales world that say, oh, but my audience are, millennials or even, next generation people. And it's like, they don't want to talk on the phone. They just want to text. And I would say that I understand that there's an aspect of that I totally get. When we look at, doing business and building relationships, I believe, and maybe again, it's a generational way of thinking, but I do truly believe. And I mean, we've got a lot of the data to back that up and experiences from others, and be it younger generation, older generation, there's a lot of people that'll attest to, yes, I got to get in front of people. I got to talk to people. I got to be on the phone with people, as opposed to just text or just send an email or just post on social media. But to you, Chris, like as you're building your real estate business and you continue to have the successes that you've had and will have, what are some of those non-negotiables in your day that you feel are absolutely imperative, and that you would even suggest to anybody that's in the business that's either, again, somebody who's looking to like get to their next level or somebody who is just starting out?
Phone calls are important, but I think structuring your day. It's easy to say phone calls and make 5 phone calls, but when are you going to make them?
Oh, I like that.
Right. So I think having having that structure to your day and moving forward, like, are my days fairly structured as it is? Typical day, alarm goes off at 5:15, a couple minutes to kind of wake up, and, I do my workout before I leave the house, get ready for the day, check what needs to go on. And then, my days most mornings are follow up, Monday mornings for me, follow up, letting, listing all my listings, let them know what their numbers were, what their online views were and stuff from the past week, follow up with some buyers throughout the week, and booking appointments in between. But I think having that structure throughout the day, and then I kind of bookend my day as well. So we typically go to about 9. I don't go too much past that for TV watching or being on the phone. Kind of bookend the day, make sure I got everything ready for the next day. Then I'm reading a book that's non-business, kind of take my mind off things for a little while as I wind down, do some journaling. And then, I'm usually head on the pillow by 10 o'clock. So I think having the structure for your entire day set out instead of like, I just got to make 5 phone calls. If you have that and it's just kind of willy-nilly throughout the day, you're probably not going to make them, or it's too easy to fill that empty time with non-productive things. And I think, doing a little bit of both to begin with helped me structure that day and use most of the minutes in the day. So I could do all that and squeeze everything in. And that way, when you are out and about, and it leaves you more time for some of that spontaneous things or running into somebody you haven't seen in a while and starting a conversation. And, going by what you said with, the millennials and different ways of reaching out and touching is, like we typically all make phone calls, and I'll mix it up. I'll send some text messages, sometimes I'll do an email if I'm following up, but I want to make sure that, throughout the year, I'm having 1 or 2 phone calls, especially with the millennial generation. Everybody likes to say, you're going to stand out if you're actually talking to them on the phone. Everybody else is texting them or DMing them through social media. If you're the one that actually gets them on the phone or runs into them in the street and you actually have a face-to-face conversation, that's when I feel like I'm standing out to everybody else that's trying to grab their attention in that day. So I'm an old school guy too. I like being on the phone. I like the face-to-face. But, sometimes I've got to adapt and say, okay, for the most part, this person's more receptive to text messages. Then I'll send them a text message most of the time, but I'm still going to make an effort throughout the year to talk to them on the phone a few times as well.
I like that. So there's a mix of different channels that are being leveraged. It's understanding, though, which ones are also going to be the most impactful, and running into somebody on the street and or making that phone call really seems to be what leads to that next level with people in terms of relationship.
Yeah, for sure. Like, it's all about building a relationship. I want those, and it goes beyond just the transaction point. Like, I want my clients reaching out to me when they need a plumber, or they have a friend that, has a bad neighbor that's renting and they just need another rental a new rental place to go to. I got that message earlier just before the phone call.
Oh yeah.
So I'll help them out. I'll help them find a rental, but I want them leaning on me for everything. Where's a good place to eat if you're new to town? I want them leaning on me for everything. So that's why I try and, kind of be part of their lives and not just their realtor. I want to be that person that they're going to for anything they need in the area.
Well, that's what we call trusted advisor status, right? Where when they think of you, and I think that this is a mistake that so many people make, is they go, that's got nothing to do with me, and I'll send you off to somebody else. Or don't bother me with that, I'm too busy. I think we miss, and a lot of folks in this industry, especially in sales, miss that moment to understand that, like, when somebody's calling you to ask you for something that even has nothing to do with you, but they might be in your neighborhood, it might be they just want your opinion. The reality is you're not doing any business around it, but these are people that entrust in you. If they're asking you, give them a hand, right? Like I
Yeah.
had a guy the other day call me up and he says, Dave, my son he's been playing baseball at school and I'm thinking about putting him in ball. And the teacher's at school and he's a really good hockey player, right? But he has never played like rep ball. Says, do you think like I could lean on you a little bit and just ask you, like, I trust your opinion. Beautiful. My team's already made. I don't have room for this guy and I've never seen him play ball. But I've got a friend, a colleague, a friend that entrusts in me to understand what I would think. Does that have anything to do with business? No. But the reality is, even if it's a friend or somebody there that's leaning out to me and they're thinking about me to help them with that, number one, hey, I built positive mind share with them on something. But number two, there's obviously a trust that's been established. And let's call it brass tacks here. You want to get somebody's deal, you need to establish trust.
Oh, for sure.
Right?
For sure, right? And it takes like a couple minutes out of your day to answer somebody's email or phone call or text message when they're reaching out and it's not business. Like it doesn't take long.
What do you say? What do you say to somebody then who says, yeah, but Chris, structure and time and know what you're doing throughout the day. Like real estate's not really like that. Sales is not like that. I mean, running my own business as an entrepreneur is not like that. I got a lot I got to do and I just got to get it done. How would you answer that? What would you say back to them, or maybe some advice?
Like for me, as much as my days are structured, if I'm not face to face with a client or I'm not in the middle of a showing, if somebody sends me a message and wants to, needs a contract or something, I'm going to take, even if a phone call ends up being 5 or 10 minutes because you haven't talked to them in a while, you know what I mean? I can push something off 5 or 10 minutes. Is it really, if your day's structured and you plan on going, home at 5 o'clock, is it the end of the world if you go home at 5:15, but you've helped one person out throughout the day get something that they've reached out to you for, whether it's business or not? Like to me, I would just be willing to put in that extra work, whether I had to bump something, even if I had to bump something an hour. You know what I mean? You've helped somebody out. Like I don't know. I feel that I would just put in the extra hours and I would squeeze that time in the day. And I may not get back to them, that second if I'm in the middle of a showing. If it's a phone call and they left me a message, sure, I'll put the hands free on and call them in between showings and answer their question. Like I think you can always carve out a couple minutes a day, 5 or 10 minutes a day to help someone out from that. Like they're calling you for a reason. They've taken time out of their day to ask you a question. I just feel like the least I could do is answer it or find them the information.
So regardless, there's always a structure to what you're doing in your day. That being said, there's also that thought of, hey, I know how this game plays out, so I need to have those little bit of buffer windows to be able to manage some of that other stuff that just pops up.
Yeah. Like, and I typically schedule things on a half-hour basis, right? So if I get something done in 20 minutes, I just bought myself 10. So it leaves me time to do other things.
There you go.
And I think as much as my schedule is structured, I think it's important to be flexible with that. So if I have somebody call up, say, hey, do you have time tomorrow morning to run over, thinking about listing our house, but I think we got to do a few things, is being able to change that schedule up if you can. I'm not going to say, no, I can't pop over because I got to make my 5 phone calls between 11 and 12. You know what I mean?
Right.
Squeeze them in and I'll bump that to a different part of the day. So I think,
but having the stuff that needs to be done in the schedule keeps you on track going. That stuff's got to be done regardless.
Yeah, like I don't delete it. Right. So when I go through, my stuff's color coded in my schedule. So when I go through and do it, I go back in and change the color. So it's different colors for different things, but once it's done, it's green.
Yep.
So when I'm just about to leave the office, is everything green, or is there something I have to do when I get home?
Peace of mind, though, isn't it?
I keep it. Oh, it is for sure. And it lets me know, okay, I've done everything today and I'm not going to forget anything. You know what I mean? I'm the type of person, I write everything down. Everything's down and it's in my schedule. Second I make an appointment, it goes in there, whether it's for today or a week from today. Right? So it's just marking everything green when you're done.
Now, as we talk about time and we talk about running through the days, I mean, I know personally you're a busy dude. You not only help people buy and sell real estate, but you also invest in real estate. You help people invest in real estate. You spend a bunch of time giving back to charity, as we talked off the top with Homes for Heroes and the Children's Miracle Network. I know you love to do your boating during the summertime.
Yeah.
And you're actively involved. And when I say actively involved, I mean like helping and sort of being there, not just playing, but within your curling community in the winter.
Yep. Yeah.
And I also know that you make a lot of time to spend with the family through vacations and just, little getaways, maybe a day, a night, a weekend. But I mean, again, when we look at that, and I mean, you've got some other outside things that you focus on, and I mean, well-structured guy. You've got you've got a successful business running. We talk about, again, time. Like when we look at how much there is to do in life in a day, in terms of, achieving that level of success we're trying to get to, where do you take the idea of boating, family time, curling, giving back to charity? I'll put investing more into the sort of the business side of like helping people, but from a personal standpoint, first, what's the priority level on that versus what you're doing with business? And then how do you find the time to manage all that? Or does that just come back to like, look at the schedule, put it in there?
Yeah. Some weeks are crazier than others. But basically it's scheduling those things out. So if we have last year we did quite a bit last year as far as some traveling and getaways go, but I pre-booked those. So they go in the schedule first.
Right.
So if we have a bigger vacation booked, like we did last year, that went in the schedule. Our weekend getaways go in the schedule, and then I schedule business around that. So I think that's important. I have scheduled days. This might sound a little corny, but I put it in my goals, to spend X amount of days on the boat with the family, make use of that, X amount of walks with my wife on a monthly basis. So it's just the two of us walking the dog. You know what I mean? So that goes in our schedule. And I think it's easier that way than trying to fit in. In this industry, you'll fill your year with work if you let it.
Yeah.
And then things slide and those vacations get put off. And I think that way, if you schedule it, kind of reverse engineer it, book that first, then schedule all your real estate around that. And people understand now. If you tell them, I'm really sorry, but I have a family weekend booked, I'll book you in any time between. I'm saying 99% of people understand that and go enjoy time with your family. So I think it's just as important from that point of view on the personal side is to put that stuff in the schedule as it is putting your business stuff in your schedule.
So you prioritize that stuff in the same level?
Oh, for sure. They're equal. Like there's not one that's above the other. So I got to do both for the lifestyle I want to live. You know what I mean? And it's enjoying some of the things. If I got a day of just paperwork and phone calls, I'll go out in the middle of the lake and work from the boat.
That's cool. That's cool.
So I have a certain number of days I want to go do that this year.
That's cool.
So it's just doing that stuff and making it possible. And curling, the same thing. It's putting that in the schedule, and it's another way to get out there and network in the community. Right. So I think as long as you're scheduling everything, you should be able to fit it in.
That's unique what you just brought up, and I think that probably gives people a whole big breath of fresh air right there. But I think the spin that you just put on that was huge, man. Of when I'm going to go out and I'm going to do my curling, or I'm going to go and I'm going to get, go to the, to drop my boat in the water or whatever, be it the marina or, going out with my wife and doing either a walk through the community or go to the spa, right? Like, I mean, you bump in, no, but there's people there, you bump into people, you get to talk to people and, let's be real. All of those people at that moment in time, if they are curling or they are boating or they are spying or they are walking, they've got commonalities with you right now that they're doing something that's similar to in common with what you're doing. Therefore, there's a jumping off point for a conversation, which is the initial step to a relationship.
Yeah, for sure. And it really doesn't matter what you're doing. Like I curl once a week, sometimes twice if I'm sparring for somebody. I never have to bring up real estate. I never have to tell people what I do. I advertise there, I curl there, but the conversations come from them. Like I never have to start them. So it's kind of nice that way, is I don't need to go in there and, kind of beat my chest and say, hey, look, I'm the realtor here. I just don't need to.
I literally
Right?
just had
People
that
come
view
to
of you
you.
like walking into curling going, I'm here. So when we look at like what keeps you motivated, it's obviously you mentioned about your goals and the tracking, but it's obviously got to be the motivation right there of really achieving what you set out to want to achieve.
It's just lifestyle. And my lifestyle is not for everybody.
Right. Fair.
Right.
I
So,
like that.
but I just like whatever your lifestyle is, whatever your motivation is, my motivation is to have the lifestyle I have. You know what I mean? I want to be able to go on the boat as much as possible. I want to be able to, do one vacation a year, a couple of weekends here and there, whatever it ends up being. I want to be able to do that. And that's my motivation is it's basically family and doing stuff with family.
Isn't that why we do it?
That's all I need. Yeah, that's all I need.
It's amazing because we all would agree to that. Yet so many people get so lost in their days because there's no structure to goals. There's no structure to a schedule. There's no focus on what you really want. There's a thought about what you want, but there's no action steps to actually bring it to life. So we actually look back on a day, week, month, year and kind of go, what did I accomplish? Did I do that? And you might have some like wicked, you've done a great job like revenue wise, but have you done a great job on the family and the love and the health side? And I think we don't take, we take one for granted, and it's really the health and the family. We take it for granted, and we shouldn't.
Well, I think a lot of times it's because that's the easiest thing to push off.
Right.
Right.
But why?
Your workout's easy to push off.
Why?
Right?
Why?
I don't know, but I think I think that's what most people think. I can push that off. Well, I'll do my workout tomorrow. Like on a day like today, I would rather put in the extra time here so I can get maybe an extra 2 hours on the boat this summer.
Right. You see. So tell me this, man, about, I think about 2 years ago now, you decided it was time to hire a coach. And at the time, without obviously, again, going deep dive, but what was it that you were struggling with or what were you looking for added help with? Like, cause, and let me maybe again, kind of segue this and say, there's a lot of people out there that forget it, a lot. Everybody struggles with something. Okay. Everybody's got challenges. And sometimes, and back to like 20 minutes ago, the comment around social media and like, it's not what it all like it's pent up to be. What you see is not always what you get. And so many people struggle with something in some aspect of life. And we know that we could use some help. And I think we all go through that. What for you, and again, not so specific to like your struggle, but what were you looking for added help with?
I think some of it was just, and I find more when you're, I guess, kind of an individual agent too, excuse me, is some of it is accountability, right? As much as we've talked about, real estate and military and all that, it's the accountability factor and just having somebody to bounce ideas off of and, okay, this needs to get done. And sometimes it is like when we, especially when, excuse me, especially when we first started, it was, okay, I have these action steps to do before our next meeting. That's not done. I'm like, crap, I'm going to hear from David. You know what I mean? So it's that extra push to get that stuff done. You know what I mean? And a lot of times it's not easy. Like we talked about schedule and stuff. It's not perfect. Is there days that I don't get my workout done? Sure.
Yeah.
Is there weeks we don't go for the walk? Sure. We're all human.
Mm-hmm.
But I think just having that accountability and being able to point you in the right direction and just a difference of opinion and somebody that's outside of, let's say your brokerage or my team here at Remax,
right?
Is just getting a different perspective on something. So I think, like, to me, it's made a world of difference having a coach. And I think if you consider yourself a professional, no matter what you're doing, you need a coach. Every pro athlete, and even other industries as well, have coaches. They're there for a reason. No pro athlete gets where they are without a coach. So I consider myself a professional realtor. Why would I not have a coach?
Ooh, I like that. I like just the bluntness of that. And again, I know it sounds completely self-serving when I say that, but seriously, I mean, I've used the parallel. We've heard the parallel many times. We have pro athletes and celebrities and musicians and like the best actors, actresses, like the best of the best all have coaches. The best business people all have coaches. And as you just said, I'm a professional realtor. Why would I not have a coach? And it's an interesting spin. It's such a simple one, but it's such an interesting way to look at that. And I mean, I guess it's that thing too of like you said to yourself, okay, I need some accountability. Mm-hmm. We look at what is that thought process, that mindset, that trigger, that click, that switch in your mind that went off that said, I'm now going to pull this trigger. Do you remember that at all? Or was it just like, I just know I got to do it? And I mean, I don't know. I'm digging for something there. Like I'm trying to help people who are having this thought process kind of go, what is it that makes me do it? As opposed to just knowing I need it or even the desire to want it.
So for me, it was a few different things that went into it. I did research a lot of different coaches. But to me, I felt my business was plateauing. And I was trying to do everything. I was trying to, run everything the way I wanted to. Things were plateauing. I'm like, I want to get to this next level. How do I get to this next level? You know what I mean? Do I start a team? Do I, join a group? What do I do? Maybe I should look at coaching. You know what I mean? You don't go from playing rec league to rep league and the pros without putting a coach in there, right? If I want to stay in rec league and I was happy doing what I was doing, I probably wouldn't have a coach, but I want to take that to the next level now. That next level for me is rep sports or professional. I need a coach to get there.
Gotcha.
I need a coach to guide me through that. So that was kind of the step. Is to me, it was just I was doing well. I just wasn't happy where my business was. Everything else in life was good. My business just is not where I wanted it to be for the lifestyle I wanted. So that's what made me decide to say, okay, look, I need to bring a coach in here. And maybe you got to bring a coach in because you need systems in place and we worked on that. I had some, when I started, but, tweaking them and, making them a little bit better, maybe easier to work with. But if you're someone that doesn't have the systems and you need them, again, why not get a coach?
Well, I'll tell you the first thing.
Implement all that.
Yeah, the first reason people probably don't is because they're worried about the dollars that they're going to spend on a monthly basis and go, but what am I getting?
Yeah, and that's a concern, right? It's money.
Absolutely,
it's money going out of the business, right? It's always a concern. But I think if you have the right coach in place for you that works with you, I think it's going to pay for itself. If you look at what coaching costs you on a yearly basis, if that coach gets you 1, 2, 3 more deals, it's probably paying for your coaching.
Yeah.
Right. So that's the way I look at it is there's got to be return on investment. And I've seen it in my business since I've been coaching. Right. It's grown enough where the growth is paying for the coaching.
Now you said you looked at, you search around, you look for a few different coaches, you explore what's out there. Now I know that I'm a Leafs fan. You happen to be for some reason, and quite frankly, I really can't say that right now considering what they're doing in the NHL, but you happen to be a Bruins fan. Outside of all that, jokes aside, what led you to call us here at Mindshare, and even decide to actually take that step and work with us? I mean, I guess what was that part of the journey like?
So when I was looking at coaching, I think I was with using kits for CRM before that.
Which we think
listen to your listen to your podcast before I came on with coaching. And I was looking for someone, a lot of the coaches I found one, you didn't deal with that person. So I wasn't dealing with the other companies. I wasn't dealing with David. I was dealing with some other coach in the system. A lot of them I found just were not local enough either, whether it was too Americanized or just too. I like the fact you guys are in Ontario and training in Ontario. Not that it means it has to, but I was definitely looking for something Canadian. So when I kind of branched out into the broad search, I found just too many of the other ones were, too Americanized, and a lot of their coaching things we couldn't use here. So I definitely wanted a Canadian coach, someone that could coach me out of Canada. And there were still a couple that would do that. And I interviewed about 4 or 5. And to be honest, it was just a connection.
Cool.
From that initial call. Yeah.
So now that's very cool to hear, because I don't think I've ever asked you that before. As the calls start to happen now, did it seem even more sort of cemented that like you made the right choice? The calls are comfortable. There's a good experience there on the chat. You've got action steps at the end of each call. How does that feel now that like, and I mean, again, this is now probably 2 years removed, let's be honest, but prior to that though, even initially speaking, that connection that you said you were looking for, that you felt you had, did that continue immediately, and has that continued to be?
Yeah, for sure. And there's a coach for everybody.
Yeah.
Right. And like I said, the connection was there. I honestly still feel it's there. Otherwise, honestly, I wouldn't be doing it. Right. I'm not gonna pay money out for something that's not working. And work goes both ways. Like it's not all on you as the coach. Like I still have to go in and do the work. Right. As much as you're coaching me, if I don't go do the work, it's the same in sports. Coach tells you to go, practice your curve. If you don't practice your curveball, you're not going to get good at it. Right. So
I'm trying to keep telling my son Joshua that every day.
It's a two-way street. And I think that's the important part, is that, to me, it's like, I'm working with you as much as you are with me. Right. I still have to go do everything and, make those things. And, I'm leaning on coaching to kind of guide me in that right direction and say, okay, let's go do this. And, let's go do this, and let's look at the yearly thing. What's paying off? I like the year end stuff that we do. What worked, what didn't work, what can we tweak in the budget? Like that stuff, a lot of people I don't think do. They just go from one year to another. And they're like, oh, as long as I have more money in the bank than's going out, it's okay. But I think if you're a professional, you need to run this as a business. And I think taking a look at those year end, what didn't work, what did work. Let's take a look at our marketing budget. What can we, what are you comfortable spending? Like doing all that and asking those questions. Like, to me, that's another reason why you have a coach. It's not just the day-to-day stuff of building the business. It's keeping you on track for everything.
Yeah, I say we have a lot of creative stuff that goes on throughout the year. Much the same, just to back that up. I mean, when I look back to like this specific experience here, and I look back at those, let's say those past 2 year ends, there's been some major strides made like year over year after going through that little process, and that is really wicked to see. And again, I just say it to you, like a big congrats to you, man, because I love the work ethic you have. And that to me was, again, another big reason of like that military mind in real estate. There's that structure, that process that you bring to it, that what do we call that standard operating practice that comes into play, that's become innate for you now though, right? And these things are working. Like, what about the ongoing, the communication around like the text line? Like we find that valuable, having that ability to sort of reach out and sort of that arm's length.
I do. And I think that's what, for me, was an added something that some of the other companies did not offer. You got your 1 or 2 calls a month, and then that was it. And you could be on a bigger like Facebook group or something. But I think and I reached out through that text line with you. You know what I mean? And it, just be able to bounce an idea off, or, hey, this happened, or what do you think of this? I think having that is just another line of communication throughout the month, especially in some of the busier months, or, some of the slower months when you're thinking of new ideas and new things to do. It's like, oh yeah, do you think this will work? So I think having that is important, because it's not just, I got to wait 2 weeks. 2 weeks in this business feels like a lifetime sometimes.
Oh, for sure, right?
right? So,
So,
having that response and that accessibility is important. Or I found it anyway.
so for anybody who's on the fence about coaching and then on the fence about potentially even hiring us at Mindshare 101, what would you say to them about, I guess, and you shared an experience here, and I'm grateful, and I'm grateful for you sharing it. I'm also grateful for the fact that you're seeing the impact, because know firsthand how much TLC we really do put into this, and we want to see our clients succeed. We really, really work hard at that. For anybody that is on the fence about that, about hiring us, let's say, what would you say that they can expect from the experience on the overall working with us and sort of where they want to go?
I would say just like, if you're on the fence, you're obviously thought about it. I would just go ahead and do it. Put in the effort. You know what I mean? Just go ahead and try it. Try it for a year. Worst case, if it's not a fit and it doesn't work, you tried it for a year. But in my experience, if you put in the work and you work with your coach and do everything that you need to do, you're going to see the results. So I'd say just jump in and try it. Try it for a year. I can't see how it wouldn't work. Right? And just look, and I think if anything, this is the year to try it. I think it's going to be a little bit of a challenging year. So, I think having a coach behind you is important for sure.
Cool. So now here, you've taken strides to grow your business, to really get to your next level. You do continue to put in the effort, and you are getting results. And sometimes results are faster, sometimes they're slower, things are happening. Yet with the structure that you have, and again, this standard operating procedure to the way you run your day, which is, as we've talked about, very, very possible in this world. No matter what anybody says about the game of real estate, sales, entrepreneurship, it is very possible to be able to put structure to a day. At the end of your day, how do you know it's been a successful day for you?
For me, when I've had the opportunity to help somebody, and it doesn't need to be in business. I don't care if I held a door for someone at the grocery store because their arms are full. If I could help somebody or put a smile on somebody's face, that's all I need at the end of the day. That's all it comes down to.
Well, you just put a smile on my face, so I thank you for that. So tell me this, man. Final words. Anything you want to share with anybody here about any of the stuff that we talked about today, and overall how they could get out there to build mind share so they get more market share? Just some final words for people.
Just go out there and be you. Like, you're gonna attract the people you want to work with. Like, don't try and be someone you're not. Just go out there and be you, put in the effort, help people, and it'll all come back. Words
of wisdom. I like it. Chris, thank you, man. Really appreciate you joining me today on the Mindshare podcast, talking about a military mind in real estate. I also just want to say not only a big thank you, but a big congratulations to you. It is just absolutely awesome to watch the success that you continue to create for yourself, the hard work that you put in. And I think that a lot of everything you shared here today is certainly really, really valuable for our audience. So again, a big thank you to you for making the time to join me.
No worries. Thank you.
All right, a lot of fun, pal. You're either listening to this on one of your favorite podcast platforms, or maybe you went to my website, mindshare101.com. And while you're there, be sure to download your free copy of the Ultimate Marketing Bundle, our 31-page ebook, including your free 90-day social media content calendar, is your guide to building a lot more mindshare. A reminder as well that if you want to talk about personalized one-to-one coaching, an in-person keynote talk for your upcoming event, and or ongoing virtual training, just get in touch with me and we'll set up a free consultation call to learn more about what you're looking to achieve and how I am going to help you do just that. Don't forget, enter your name in the draw to win free swag by simply leaving a review of this podcast. Go to ratethispodcast.com/mindshare101. Also, connect with me on Facebook at Mindshare101 and on Instagram at David Greenspan 101. I want to thank Kids Keep in Touch Systems, Gray Media Marketing, and REM Real Estate Magazine for sponsoring the Mindshare podcast. Be sure to visit our site to learn more about what these powerful companies will do to help you grow your business. This has been another episode of the Mindshare podcast. Thank you for tuning in.